I'm Pastor Fred Hearn of St. James Lutheran Church here in Marion, Indiana. We are a small church basically in the central area of Indiana, but you probably didn't know that we're a famous church. Years ago, 30-some years ago, Lyle Lovett and Julia Roberts were married in this church. Today, we're going to give you the real story. You're going to hear an interview by the people that lived across the parking lot who viewed it all. You're also going to hear from a local reporter at the time who is still a member of this congregation, and from the pastor that actually did the wedding. You're going to get the real inside story that maybe some of you have never heard before. I asked you one question about St. James is very famous, and everybody's talked about it. I heard it talked about throughout the Synod before I even came here.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
This is the church that Lyle Lovett and Julie Roberts got married in, and since you guys had a front row seat, could you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, it was an interesting Sunday to start with, because Pastor Mark wasn't as concise and brief with his sermons as you are.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they ran a little long, and he would greet everybody at the door on the way out, and usually the line to get out took a little bit of time to get through, because he would talk considerably with people as they were passing through. But this particular Sunday, he shut down that sermon really early, and he said, "I've got something really exciting happening in my life. I can't tell you what it is just right now, but he says you'll find out soon." And then service was over, and instead of the typical, how you doing, what's going on in your life, it's like, "Good to see you," and he's almost like shoving everybody out the door. And so the neighbor across the street from us, her son was a police officer, and he was part of the security detail.
Oh.
And so he told her what was going on. Well, she came over to the house, and she's like, "Oh, something really exciting is going to happen in your backyard in just a few minutes." And we're still trying to figure out what Carlson was meaning and everything else. And she says, "Well, Julia Roberts is coming." And, she still was a pretty new star at that point. And I just kind of...
We just were not in tune, really.
Okay, that's great, And she's like, "Pretty Woman."
Yeah.
And it's like,
It's
oh.
my wife's favorite movie. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So then, then it started to click.
She's going to marry Lyle Lovett, and we're like, who is that?
Yeah.
We had no idea.
Then it started to click in. Well, just about that time, the big tour buses rolled in.
Oh.
We literally walked from the front door to our back sliding door, and from that conversation, and the buses
tour buses rolled in.
Wow.
Now, at that point, we didn't have the addition on the church yet. So it was just basically from the memorial rooms up that was part of the church. Okay. So the only real entrance was this main entrance right here. So they pulled the buses up and into a little V shape, so you couldn't see from outside. And so they could come off the bus and go in and out the door without anybody seeing, except for the person who had a 2-story house next door. From the upper level, you could see down and see through. And so people were starting to gather, rumors were, but, they thought they had pulled something off, that the paparazzi wasn't here. Well, Karen had a run-in with a guy from the National Enquirer.
Within 10 minutes of the buses pulling in, this guy started yelling at me from the fence at the front of the house. And he was from the National Enquirer, and he said, "I will give you whatever you want if you let me upstairs in that bedroom window to take pictures." And we're like, nope.
I literally had to bum rush him off the property.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. He was determined.
Yeah. And so we went over, and we said something to the police officer who went and got Julia Roberts' security chief. Oh. And he came over to talk to us, and basically his question at that point was, "What are you going to do? Are you going to allow these people to do this, or are you going to, come alongside us in our security?" And, we had just had our anniversary, like
Yeah,
a week
just
before that.
something
So,
like
we were kind of like feeling kind of, romantic kind of things. And no, we're not going to let these people ruin your wedding.
Right.
And so he said, wait here. And so he came back over here to the church and then came back out 5 minutes later. And he says, they really appreciate us cooperating. And he says, so how would you like to come? So the reception was down at Deer Creek Music Center, which is now called Klipsch. I think. No, what is it now?
Ruoff.
Ruoff now, yes. It's had so many different names. But anyhow, it was at the music center. He was doing a concert there, so they're having a reception there. So he says, how would you guys like to be their guest to this concert and everything down there? And we're like,
okay.
we were country western fans, and we're like, nah.
We didn't know what kind of show or music we didn't know him at all. So
yeah,
no, that's
so
okay.
like, nah, that's okay. And he looks at me and he goes, "You realize this man just married Julia Roberts today. This is going to be like the greatest concert ever in the whole wide world.
His best concert.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, we'll do this.
He said, name your tickets.
So
how
tell me
many
how many tickets you want. I mean, we could have just named as many. But we weren't really thinking. We just took the two of us and my mother-in-law.
Yeah.
And my son.
I didn't know what kind of show it was for my sons to be there because they were little at the time.
Yeah, and my older son is a real music aficionado, and he is still to this day doesn't forgive us for not taking us with him. But it was a lot of fun. Then then the next thing and the only people that really was involved in St. James was pastor and his wife, and of course Larry Chandler, who was the bus driver from St. James that brought them here.
He has since passed.
Yeah, he actually died right after I got here.
Right.
And Pastor Carlson came up and did the funeral, and I went and attended the funeral, and they had some very good stories about him because he drove a bus for like AC/DC.
Oh,
and
yeah.
different groups.
Oh, yeah.
We got to go to an
He
Amy
took us to an
Grant
Amy Grant
concert and
and
go
we got to
back
go,
and meet her. And
backstage.
he
and
did a
stuff.
lot with wrestlers.
Yeah, professional wrestlers. He did Rod Stewart one time too. I remember him talking about Rod Stewart in concert and driving him around. But anyhow, so
he had a connection.
So he had a connection, and the
he drove
Carlsons.
the bus for him.
Oh, okay.
And that's how they ended up here.
Yeah, he was driving the bus at the time.
And he knew
tour bus.
Pastor Carlson.
Well, he was
Well,
a
they were
member of the
members
church.
here.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, Lyle Lovett, by the way, was a Missouri Synod Lutheran.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that for a long time.
So actually,
And that's how
they brought his pastor up from Texas, and him and Pastor Mark actually did counseling with Lyle and Julia before the wedding.
So they postponed everything because they told him they wouldn't do the ceremony unless they
counseled.
counseled.
So the only people again was Larry Chandler, the Carlsons, Nancy Donahue, who was our organist at the time.
Can you imagine?
She was
playing organ for Lyle Lovett.
Yes, and then her daughter Kathy Marshall made a cake.
She was really talented
at making cakes, and other than that, nobody else was involved. And it was interesting because they just had Kristen, right?
Lauren.
Was Lauren?
Mm-hmm.
And so Lauren was just a baby, and Kristen was very young as well. And so they got to take pictures with Julia Roberts. But interesting, with the babies and everything. But the interesting thing about all that was back in the day pre-digital. It was. And so they took the camera. They developed the film. The Julia Roberts people. They kept the negatives. They gave Carlson some pictures, but they were not allowed to have the negatives or anything, so that they couldn't sell the stuff and everything. So it was quite an interesting event.
The concert was fun. I really enjoyed it, and we sat with the pastor from Texas and her sister and her mom,
and Julia's sister.
And then
next to us.
Weirdly, some reporter from the Rolling Stone was sitting in that same row with us, but it was a fun evening.
Yeah. And we had like Channel 13, Rick Van Wyck showed up at our front door to do an interview with us, and Channel 8 News was taking pictures from over here in the parking lot of our bedroom window. And it's like, this is where the action was.
There was a rumor in was headline paper in the paper the next day that we had taken all this money and
Oh my gosh.
it was craziness and our phone didn't stop ringing. We had probably 50 people in the yard.
I got a
for
phone
a while.
call from the London Times. We got woke up in the morning, the very next morning at 6 a.m. from some country western station in Indianapolis, doing we're sound asleep. He woke us up.
It was like
doing
5 in the morning.
Online or on air interview. It was ridiculous.
Some reporter from Fort Wayne tried to force themselves into our house to interview our kids while we were gone that night. It was a zoo. They took pictures of the trash and the flower boxes. And
back here,
for weeks, months, years, actually, they would drive up, stand in front of the sign and take pictures. It was just hysterical.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
People would just pull in and take pictures of the sign at St. James.
I mean, I've heard about it even in in the community.
Oh yeah. Well, in the community, sometimes people say, "Where do you go to church?" "Oh, I go to St. James." "Well, where's that?" "Oh, it's a church Julia Roberts got married." "Oh, yes, I know where you're at."
We were here. It was about the same time as Julia Roberts' deal was going on. So yeah. So ours lasted, hers didn't.
Yeah, as I said, I think it lasted like 9 months to a year or something.
Yeah.
Which was funny. I listened to Karen and Dave's talking about Julia Roberts, and I was a reporter at the time.
Oh.
And so and it was back before cell phones, so I had a walkie-talkie, and I was covering the car show, and they called me and said, "Hey, there's something going on at St. James," and I said, "Well, that's my church. I'll just go and see." And so the photographer actually caught a picture of Julia Roberts. That was the only picture that was caught. And I know Dave and Karen talked about how the buses were, strategic together. Well, Ellie Bogue caught him right as she was going in through the buses.
Oh, wow.
So she was able to make some decent money out selling that. I walked into the church and I started to talk to the organist, and then they figured out that I was a reporter, and so I was escorted out of the church. So I did a few articles, had a few radio shows, but I didn't get much out of it. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that I was not trying to get into their house or anything like that.
You weren't the person trying to...
No. But
switching gears a little bit, I'd like to talk about Julia Roberts, Lyle Lovett wedding. You can't go anywhere without having that discussion. So
I'll let Carol talk for a little bit about what happened with that.
So I got a phone call one night, and he was at the church, I think, at a meeting, and it was Marilyn, and she's like, "Carol, I just have a question for Pastor, and I just wanted to know if he could marry somebody this weekend." And I was like, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Marilyn, he usually has meets with couples several times, and what are you talking about?" And she said, and her husband drove the tour bus for Lyle Lovett.
Oh, yes.
At Larry Chandler, and she said, "Well, it's for somebody kind of famous. It's for Julia Roberts." And I said, "Julia Roberts?" I said, "You mean the Tinkerbell?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like,
Pretty woman.
No, I said Tinkerbell, but yeah. And so I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, Larry drives for Lyle Lovett, and they want to get married this weekend, and he's Lutheran. They want to do it in a place where he's got a tour or a concert in Indianapolis, and they're going to be traveling through, and they were just hoping that they could have it at a Lutheran church." So I said, "Oh, wow, I don't know." So he got home, and I told him, and then he called, and you can go from there.
We wanted to make sure of the necessary counseling that would be needed, premarital counseling. That's always important.
Sure.
I did find out that Pastor Dwight Belts, his pastor from Texas, had been meeting with them. And then Karen Bostic Weaver was the clerk of courts, and I was kind of the wedding planner of sorts, getting in touch with her to arrange for the necessary license. The service itself was structured and put together by Pastor Belts and by Lyle Lovett, a very traditional Lutheran wedding, probably even more of a worship experience / wedding than most.
Oh.
We had a lot of hymn singing that was done with traditional Lutheran hymns that we
No.
were singing.
He was Missouri Synod. Lutheran.
Yes, he grew up in Texas. He brought
The
some of his band members came and
Oh,
did
wow.
special music. Of course, our own organist, Nancy Donahue, was there on the
wow.
the keyboard playing for the wedding, which was quite interesting to have her in that position. And so as the wedding occurred, it was a really, really solid Christian and very distinctly Lutheran wedding ceremony that occurred.
Yeah.
And I just assisted. I was not the main officiant, Pastor Dwight Belts was, but he delivered a very good law gospel message about shining like stars in the world. And the Philippians passage was his text.
Oh, okay.
It was
Okay.
It was quite interesting. I had woken up that morning knowing this was going to happen, doing my private devotions. I had 2 scriptures I had come to in my reading plan. Leviticus 19, show no favoritism to the rich. And then the other passage was the Gospel of Luke with the angel Gabriel coming to Zechariah and saying, I have come from God and I have a message for you.
Oh.
So I sat in my office with Julia Roberts and Lyle Lovett, and I told them, these are the 2 scriptures I read this morning, and I have it in my heart to say, I can't show you any favoritism, and I'm not.
Mhm.
We are here, to provide this wedding service for you, but I have to say some things to you that God has put on my heart. To whom much is given, much is required. You'll have a platform. You always will have a platform the average person will not have
Mhm.
to impact, the world for Christ. She was a professing Christian in that moment.
Oh, was she? Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
notice that.
She, Lyle would not be unequally yoked.
Oh.
Yeah, he wanted a Christian woman, and she was professing Christ at the time.
Oh.
And as we think about what she ended up doing with her life and where she is now in relationship to Christ, that's a huge concern for me and my heart. It was interesting because someone had given me a 365 most influential people in the world book to pray through for a calendar year. She was one of them in that book. That was given to me before I ever met her.
Oh, wow.
And I was praying.
Wow.
And then this woman, who would have thunk it?
Yeah, that's pretty
Here she
amazing.
gets married at our church after I've intercessed and prayed for her. And God, I still pray for her salvation, that she will have Christ as her Savior.
And after the wedding, we had VIP passes, and we were invited to go to the reception, and then the concert. And that was crazy because you just have to go through so many people, show your pass, your ID, all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, I am so glad I'm a nobody. I mean, this is just not fun. And then we came home, and that's when we had the answering machines. And there was like 50 messages on our people calling from all of the BBC, all these places. Was she really barefoot? What did she have on? Blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't. And I told them, I said, because they let me take some pictures, and I said, I will not give these to anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody anything. And I just pulled the answering machine out, and I didn't answer the phone for several days because I was just.
The church answering machine had even more messages
really?
on it
Oh,
when we
wow.
came in on Monday morning, and everybody who was trying to get information was told, no, this is a very private matter. This is a matter with 2 Christians getting married in our church, and we're not going to participate in any of what you're asking us to do. I had invitations to go on television to do talk show things. No, we're not going to do that.
And then the National Enquirer came out with pictures, and it wasn't even our church. It wasn't the people that were in our church.
That's
It was just the back of people's heads in a pew. And but then
that's
People
funny.
Magazine, her
photographer or press agent had
finally released some
released
pictures.
a bunch of pictures and made a huge chunk of change off of these pictures, and pretty much violated the trust of Julia Roberts.
And I had
she didn't
somebody-
expect that. Oh.
No.
I had somebody offer to pay me for the film I had in my camera because I took it to the concert that night. I said no. And then I had a police officer come up to me and he said, "You'll have to give me that camera." And
At the
I had,
concert?
At the concert. And I had all these pictures of them. And I said, you're not going to take it. And they looked at me like, well, who are you? I said, I'm not giving you my camera. And I showed my VIP pass and I said, we're friends with them. And they gave us these passes. And so he said, well, I'll have to check. And Mark's like, give him the camera. I'm like, I'm not giving him the camera. So then he came back and he said, okay. He said, I'm not going to take the camera, but do not take any pictures. I said, that's fine. I'm done.
Oh.
So